Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. So today I have my colleague and also friend Berleena. She's a certified health coach, and I wanted to bring her here today to talk more about food and more specifically our relationship with food. A big thing that we talk about in here in lower back pain and inflammation is, of course, being mindful what we put in our bodies. And I have been noticing that a lot of people start following certain diets without realizing that certain foods may affect you differently than another person. So I wanted to bring Berleena here because she's an expert in intuitive eating, and I wanted to introduce you to intuitive eating, learn more about it, to tune more into your body and notice how certain foods are affecting you. Maybe they're causing inflammation or bloating or all these effects, negative effects that you get from eating certain foods. So I wanted to bring her in and talk more about that. So I'm going to let her introduce herself for a little bit, and then I have prepared a few questions that I wanted to ask her. So I'll just get her to introduce herself, and then we'll get straight to the questions.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Yes, my name's Berleena, and I'm a integrative nutrition health coach, and I specialize in intuitive eating, or helping women have a healthy relationship with food and their body. And the reason why I do this work is because I've been a health conscious nutrition fanatic for a long time, growing up in my sort of early 20s, and over the years realized that there's so much to health and well-being than just nutrition. It's that we live multifaceted lives, and health comes in so many ways. Our physical movement, as Sophia specializes in, and getting that structurally right, but also our emotional health, our career, our spirituality. And I realized that food and eating is still in itself a holistic perspective and approach, and that we can be eating broccoli and all the right things, but still not sort of be happy. We might be riddled with guilt or shame, or be so in our heads about something. So I realized that eating and nutrition isn't just simply what we put in our mouth and healthy eating. That it's so multifaceted, but it can be really as simple as listening to our bodies. And that's the sort of stuff that we're going to talk about, intuitive eating today.
I know I am so excited because I usually tell the story of when I was following the GAPS diet, which is a specific diet to heal from inflammation. And it's a very short-term diet. And I noticed when I did the elimination phase, I cut out all the beans and the grains, and I noticed how I had no more bloating. And I know that a lot of people, they consider beans to be healthy, which are healthy food. But for me specifically, they were affecting me in a negative way. And that was kind of when I discovered intuitive eating and eating mindfully, and just getting rid of that diet mindset and just following and listening to your body. I think that's the right word, to listen to your body. So,
yeah. And we're going to break that down because listening to your body can be sort of this abstract concept, and I really want to make that tangible and understood what that actually means, what that can look like, and how we can do that, what intuitive eating is versus a diet. We're going to get into that a little bit deeper.
I am looking forward to learning, because I have that little voice in my head. Sometimes I'm craving these things, and I don't know if that's like my body's just craving it or if it needs that food. But the first question that I wanted to ask was the difference between a diet and eating intuitively. Like, is it just another type of diet, or like, how do you differentiate between the two?
And I love that question. And especially, you asking very specifically, is it just another diet? Because, we are so used to in our culture of thinking like, this didn't work for me, but this next thing will, or it's just a cleanse, or it's just clean eating now. And I think that now today, like, with so much changing in the nutrition landscape, we kind of have shifted a little bit to lifestyle changes and, this whole culture of dieting 2.0, really, where it's still packaged up as a diet. And when I say diet, it's restrictive eating, or there's an emotional attachment to your food. And that's sort of, and it's usually at the underlying goal of weight loss. That's the type of dieting we're talking about here. Like, someone can have a diet, like that's the food that they eat, but we're talking about dieting with the underlying intention of weight loss, and the symptoms of that is usually like quite an emotional attachment, or physical or emotional restriction as well. But to the difference between intuitive eating and dieting is if we're zoomed out a little bit to look at the difference, is that dieting is somebody else telling you what to eat, or because it might have worked for them, or it's an external voice in some sense. It's a governing set of rules, food rules, or I guess a set of reasons how to do something, versus internally led and listening to your body. And again, we will put some more tangibility around that and what that means in internally led and listening to your own voice is, we all have and are born without an innate ability to cry when we're hungry as a baby, push away the food when we're full, and eat the foods that we like. So we innately, and we were born with the ability to listen to our body. And this is what we're talking about, is this ability to eat in response to hunger, fullness, but also satisfaction and pleasure and enjoyment of food, and hearing that, having the ability to respond to that in a useful and timely way as well.
I absolutely love that. Like, I love how you differentiate the two by the diet, which is just somebody else giving that to you because it works for them, with no consideration about your body. And it's like, you may have certain nutritional deficiencies, but you're not even taking that into consideration. So this is kind of the question that I personally wanted to ask, but I am sure that so many other people will also think about asking, which is, what's the difference between intuitively eating and craving? Like, if you are constantly craving certain foods, does that mean that you just have to just eat them because your body's asking for them?
Yeah, well, that's another really good question. And I think the one question, if we could really boil it down to start with, would be maybe to ask, what is actually going on? Like, in that moment, say that you're having a craving for chocolate. What's some examples that you find that you personally or know people really crave, just so that we can give some context?
I know that a lot of people in my community, they mention, for example, that they love sweets, right? Or maybe coffee, right? They want to follow like a short-term healing diet, but it asks for elimination of certain foods, and they're craving those foods even though they may not be best for them. Like, for example, you're having a good time with your family, you want to enjoy coffee and sweets, and maybe that makes you feel like you're missing out. I know there's a lot, like a social aspect to it.
So the question is, how do you know, what's the difference between listening to cravings and responding to that versus
your body?
Listening to your body. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think cravings are, the body saying something to you, and whether that is a learnt behavior response, like at 3 p.m. I have a craving for chocolate every day because your neurological pathways are sending that at this time every day. So I think first it might be just kind of asking yourself questions like, what am I feeling? right now? Like, am I bored? Because at 3 p.m. every day, am I bored? And do I look for that endorphin hit at 3 p.m. because it's exciting to leave my desk, walk down to the shop down the road and have a break because I'm so bored or tired every day at 3 p.m. and I actually don't like my job. It might be something like that. That is so, the simple question that you can ask is, what am I feeling and what do I need? So you're asking, what am I feeling? And so many clients that I speak to, they're not used to asking that question of what am I feeling? And actually, like, identifying that the feeling in itself, and using words, and practicing identifying it, like, I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm anxious, I'm agitated, I'm irritable, I'm actually really happy, and coffee is going to make me feel good about, or it's cozy and satisfied, so it's not always a negative thing. But I think if something is happening every day at 3 p.m., it's likely a learned behavior.
You're learning a pattern. You're noticing a pattern. Yeah.
And because our lives are, nothing is, ever set, some things change. For that to happen, that is a clear indication that it's a learnt behavior. But if it's actually, like a taste or something, and it's out of the ordinary, you never crave, salt and vinegar chips, and just like for the first time all year, you craved that. Then in intuitive eating, I would encourage my clients and people on this call to be curious about that and allow themselves to have that, because there's an element of restriction if you say, no, I won't have that because that's not on my diet. Then you're physically restricting, but you can be also emotionally restricting because
then you'll just be thinking about it the whole time.
Or if you're eating it and you're like, I'm so bad, I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. You're emotionally restricting because you're not allowing. So that's the difference. Physical restriction is you don't allow yourself to leave the desk because you can't, or emotional restriction is, I'm being really bad right now, like I shouldn't be doing this, and you're not emotionally allowing yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Does that answer the question between cravings and intuitive eating?
Yeah, so I think for cravings, it's when there is a pattern, and when you're asking yourself, like, how do I feel, and then you pinpoint certain emotion that is driving that craving. It's one way to, I guess, identify the difference between it, is to look deeper and ask yourself that key question, one simple question: how am I feeling? And then you're kind of getting underneath what is actually happening. Yeah, which is really hard.
And it should be expected that, if you're doing something different, than you normally do, and challenging, a practice which is, that you're so used to, it's going to be, different. I think of it sometimes if we have this learned behavior and a ship is going through the water and it needs to turn, it's going to take some time to pivot and turn. So you've got to give it time and allow that to pivot.
It's tough because we do these things every day, and it's like at one point we just do them unconsciously, and it's like we're trying to make the unconscious conscious and really like be really mindful, which is very hard in today's society.
And the first step, before you feel like you have to do, I have to notice it and then I have to do it, it's the long-term sustainable approach to change, behavioral change and mindset change and perspective change is to see it from I'm just noticing and being aware and being conscious and curious without judgment, or trying to not judge myself. Because if you judge yourself, then you're suppressing what's actually going on, and you're in your head and you're not present to what is actually being, you're just observing and saying, that's interesting. Yeah, and it takes off the pressure. That's just what you need to do, is just to be aware and curious, because naturally when we're aware of something, our brains start to work it out without you even having to consciously do it. But you know, I think the first step is to be aware, and then you know, that embodiment of change and behavioral change can happen. But at first it's just awareness.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for these amazing tips.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask the next question that is a little more related to reducing inflammation and pain originating from inflammation. So for those who are trying to reduce inflammation and eat the foods that their bodies need, how can they use intuitive eating as a tool? Like, how can they use it to notice how their bodies are reacting to certain foods so that they can avoid them? And also, how do you avoid these foods without feeling deprived? Like, say you're trying to go through a short-term diet, like the GAPS diet that I did, which is an amazing healing diet, by the way, but it was very short-term, and the goal was not weight loss. It was more healing your gut and inflammation. So, and then when I went to the elimination diet, I was able to notice these foods that were causing bloating and inflammation. So how can you use intuitive eating as a tool to notice these things that's going on in your body when you're eating a certain food?
Well, I think, you know, if people know, and, you know, nutrition science has its place. Like when we talk about intuitive eating, we're not saying just eat and follow your body and none of that information, you know, over a decade or, you know, a few decades about nutrition science, and that over the years of Atkins and all these diets that have come along, you know, just, you know, bullshit. Like you can't do it, you know, you can't follow that anymore. Isn't about not following anything. If you've learned that fruit and vegetables and real food and fresh food and whole foods is good for the human body, and we know that, and you try that on and you notice that you feel really good when you eat, like your body feels fresh in itself, versus, you know, a bagel where you feel, you know, heavy and a bit stodgy after that.
But that's the thing, a lot of people don't notice. Like
They don't notice.
eat, like I see people eating standing up, like they're eating and they're talking, and they're not even eating mindfully. Like they're just eating, and they're eating too many things at the same time. So it may be tough to pinpoint exactly what you ate that caused how you're feeling. So that's another thing. Like, how do you kind of use intuitive eating to eat more mindfully and to be used as a tool in your daily life?
Yeah. Well, as we started to talk about, I think the first thing is to be aware that there is actually an alternative to just eating or feeling guilty about, you know, your food. And the first thing is to be aware that there is an alternative way, which is to be more connected with your body. So if you are normally, you know, your response to eating because you're really busy is to be standing up in the, you know, office kitchen, eating your food, talking to your friends or your colleagues, and that's just how you do it. You know, after this call, you know, tomorrow at work, you might, you know, because you've started to hear that there's an alternative way, or that, you know, there's these ideas, you know, you're standing there and you're still doing what you normally do, but, you know, you're maybe a bit more like thinking about how the food tastes, and maybe in your mouth it's hot. Like, and so this is the next sort of element of what I want to talk about, which is, you know, food, and especially fresh food, and, you know, bagels and, you know, processed foods, which still have their place, you know, bagels and, you know, breads and, you know, fresh sourdoughs, you know, are amazing and have been in our culture for a long time, and they have their place. But, you know, noticing as you're standing up, like I'm eating my, you know, leftovers from last night's dinner, and it's chewy and it's a bit soft. You know, I'm maybe eating pasta with some, you know, bolognese over it, and you know, I'm noticing the texture, I'm noticing the mouth feel, the chewiness, the, you know, the freshness of the basil maybe on it, just, you know, starting to kind of break it down a little bit. And it's just, you know, I'm noticing how I'm feeling standing up. You know, my legs are a bit tired or something because I've been walking around all day, and you know what, it'd be really nice if I sat down. So today's lunch, I'm going to ask if my colleagues want to go and sit down. You know, just, it's just
mindfulness.
Being aware of how you're feeling, what that taste is like, starting to just pick up some, you know, feelings about how you feel eating, and saying, what am I feeling? What do I need?
Yeah. It's so amazing how mindfulness plays into everything, because even when you're working out, it's so important to be mindful of how your body's moving, because that's how you know, like, where are you experiencing pain, you know. And with practicing that, I'm able to notice when the pain is starting, and also like how each muscle is feeling. So it's just amazing to see the difference when you put your mind into everything, and how much of a difference that can make in everything in life.
And it's not an end point. This approach to eating, or this perspective isn't really like a, once you get there you arrive and now you're an intuitive eater, or now you're a mindful eater. No, I think you are, you know, always aware, and always kind of understanding yourself, and listening to, you know, your body, and becoming better, and flexing that muscle, and growing that muscle of responding. And, you know, and I don't think, you know, in this way there is a failure, or, you know, an understanding that I failed, I did the wrong thing. Because again, when you have that, you're judging and yourself, and that gets in the way of listening. So with clients, we practice, you know, lessening the good and bad foods, because we're labeling foods, and then there's self-judgment, and giving ourselves full permission to eat and enjoy foods, because when we let go of that judgment and emotional attachment, you know, good and bad food, right and wrong, this is on my diet, this isn't, you know, that gets in the way of listening to your hunger, stopping when you're full.
Yeah, but how do you do then? For example, in my case, sometimes I see like chili, right? And it has a lot of beans in it. And sometimes I want to have it, but I know if I do, I'm going to feel like shit afterwards. So that's kind of my motivation, is the pain. Like, I don't want to go back to how I was. But at the same time, like, I crave it sometimes. Not all the time, but that's kind of one of my old favorite foods. So how do you, how do you deal with these things in a healthy way without those feelings of deprivation?
Yeah. And then guilt or shaming, or, you know, negative self-talk about yourself. I use a tool with clients when we're starting out, and I might screen share. I'm thinking it might be really relevant. Would that fit with this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to just use all the resources I have.
Let me see. Because I think it might put some tangibility to this. So this is a food journal that I created for clients after us talking a bit about hunger, fullness, and the full experience of eating, and practicing, you know, connecting to their body and asking, what are they needing? What are they feeling? What do they need? And so, you know, a typical food journal looks like documenting the foods, maybe putting the calories next to it, times you ate, you know, and maybe even the ingredients if you had to like factor out everything. So it's, you know, checking how much sugar you ate or fats. And so this is definitely not that, because, you know, when we're focused on that, when we're focused on all the intricate details, we're not connecting with our body. We're listening to external voices instead of the internal voices of our body. So So I like to sort of use this as a practicing, journal to help clients identify stages of their eating and use it just for a few meals. It's not like an everyday thing at all, maybe just for 3 days. So
I like the middle part. Do I like how it feels in my body?
Yeah, and that's what reminded me to share this because of your question specifically. And so I thought I'd pull this out. So breakfast, how hungry am I? And this is on a scale of 1 to 10. So just roughly, maybe 10 being really full. And maybe here's an example, actually. So on Monday, how hungry am I? Maybe on the opposite side. So 1 being really ravenous, like really hungry, and 10 being like full to the brim, absolutely full. So on a Monday, I wake up and I'm really quite hungry. And then I'm also noticing that I'm feeling quite irritable. So again, noticing how you feel, being able to practice, asking yourself and identifying that for yourself. Maybe you're irritable because you're quite hungry, and it's like, so this is all before. So, this is also, just practicing identifying this, because when you practice, you're able to do this more naturally without having to go through such a process. And then overnight, what sounds good? Overnight oats with berries and peanut butter sound good. So that's what I think. And this is all this is a natural thinking process. I'm feeling quite hungry. I'm irritable. What sounds good? Something quite sustaining, like oats and berries and peanut butter. Sounds like such a good balance. Then during, checking in with yourself. Do I like the taste, texture, the sensations, the body sensations of this? So, after I eat a few bites, am I feeling like my body's enjoying this? And then do I like how it feels in my body? I noticed I was feeling more energized within a few bites. So I'm feeling good. So I'm going to keep eating. And then after, and you might, in this process, realize that I'm getting fuller, and because you're moving up the scale from 1 to 10, you're at an 8 now when you finish. But you would definitely be checking in with this and noticing and practicing this during your meal as well. And after, the satisfaction, did I enjoy that meal? I'm at an 8, because satisfaction and fullness are different. You can be full, but actually it wasn't what you wanted. And you realize that maybe, later on, maybe after you're finished, that it tasted, the taste and what I was actually looking for was X. But you use that as feedback and understanding of your body instead of, I shouldn't have done that, I'm not very good at following this diet. You listen to your body and practice, being able to respond to satisfaction and fullness.
So satisfaction is when you are feeling happy about what you ate, like you're feeling that what you ate fueled your body.
Yeah, satisfaction is the pleasure and enjoyment of the food, and that it hit the spot, that was so good.
Because I do notice sometimes that I'm full, but I also still need something sweet. So then I'm not satisfied. Is that right? I still want to out to other things.
You can be quite full, but maybe you just want a little bit of sweet, or you want a bite of apple with peanut butter, or you want 2 scoops of ice cream from the freezer, so and that would just be so satisfying. And allowing that is so much more nourishing, not only because you're not going to perhaps binge later, and this is just an example, but, you know, because you don't allow yourself ever to eat ice cream. Whereas if you gave yourself, you know what sounds really good right now is 2 scoops of ice cream, you know, with you know, nuts on top or something. And that sounds really good. I'm going to allow myself, and you know, practice going through this again. And again, this is not how you're going to live your life and have to document and be in this before, during, after phase, and it's another diet. It's just a practice, like, process that, you know, I've learned myself naturally go through, and I've just been able to kind of categorize it up, and that, you know, is supportive and scientifically validated approach to a healthy relationship with food is this awareness, personal awareness of hunger and fullness and satisfaction. These are the areas of eating that help identify someone to eat more in line with their body and their needs.
These are really amazing new things I'm learning, because it's like you think you're aware, but you learn something new and you're like, I have to practice more.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's so important to continue to learn, but also grow that awareness and see other perspectives and ways people think about food and their body. And this quickly, I don't know if this is relevant, but just to quickly show, when I talk about the hunger and fullness scale, this is what I mean. Like visually picturing it on a scale is this 0 being really nauseous and shaky, and you know you're really frustrated, about to hurt someone. Edgy, irritable, hunger pangs, and see how this goes from red to that yellow and the green area. And so I say to clients that it's really important to be self-care and supportive of yourself, and not too often let yourself go out of that range where you are, in survival mode and are either, so hungry that, your survival instincts set in, or you're so full that you would find it really hard to, concentrate or, live your life normally because you're so full and feel sick.
Okay, so the last question I have for you today is for people who are trying really hard to follow a healthy diet, or I don't like the word diet, so I just say nutrition. But they don't seem to be able to, either because there's like family pressure, or they're just busy. So what tips do you suggest to help them stick to their healthy eating?
Yeah, so my thoughts on that is that I think a really simple technique or tip would be to add in rather than take out. And what I mean by that is instead of, if you know that coffee, you have 3 coffees a day, and you know that you often feel pretty yuck about having those 3, but it's just, your lifestyle is so busy, and coffee really helps you get through the day and gives you that perk, and you get those cravings for it. I would say, if you know that doesn't feel good, but it's just how you live your life right now, to support yourself by, instead of taking it out and then, you have this gaping hole that you are so used to having that 3rd coffee, why not add in a herbal tea? So if your routine is to have a coffee when you are on your way to work, and then, at 10:30 you have another one in the office, and then at 3 p.m. you have a 3rd one, why not in your day of those 3 coffees have a herbal tea at, say, 2 o'clock, and then your coffee at 3. Small tweaks that can add in rather than, take it out. And I think that this is just a supporting yourself by crowding out, what you don't like. So I've just found that when clients are able to, give themselves, say, if they are used to eating, lots of takeaway food, that they can instead of just, you know, making dramatic shifts, order the salad as well as their takeaway food. If that is where they're at, meet themselves where they are at, but add in something that is going to just be that smaller tweak. That's probably the simplest suggestion that I can make for, you know, and also stuff that you like food that you like. So not just ordering something because you really think it's healthy, but like, you know, do you like broccolini over Brussels sprouts? Then eat the broccolini. Do you like you know, certain green juices over the other? Then, you know, do what serves you, and find out what you like and be curious about what you like, and support yourself. So it's coming from a place of self-care instead of trying to control yourself and self-control. You know, it's this tweak in perspective and understanding about how you want to, you know, move from, instead of I should do this, you know, what do you want to do and how can you do it for you instead of somebody else. Self-care over self-control and self-compassion.
And I think when we have that perspective, it's easy for us to say no to things. Say, like, if I am at a family dinner and everybody's like pressuring me to eat something and I know that it's not good for me and I don't feel good eating that certain food. So when I think about, you know, like taking that perspective of self-care and caring for my body, then it's easy for me to say, actually, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm going to eat something else. But when you're more like seeing your body kind of like the enemy, then you may just go ahead and try to eat that because you want to please somebody else. And then feel, again, that cycle of feeling guilt and shame afterward and feeling angry at yourself because you didn't follow what your body was telling you. I want to thank you so much for answering those questions. I am so sure that it's not just myself, but I know that so many people have had so many questions about how to eat better for inflammation and like just how to tune more into their bodies and learning how to eat for their bodies instead of just following these diets. So I want to thank you so much for your time today and for being here with me, answering the questions. Again, I'm going to leave all of your website information below the video for everyone if you guys want to check Berleena out. She's an amazing coach and I absolutely love her recipes on Instagram and her blog posts about intuitive eating. So thank you so much again. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.